I never thought I'd be a foreigner in my own country. But I came home and I found that I was lost. Whether I liked it or not, now I was a foreigner in my own home. One, I needed to own that new personality. Speaking too fast, walking too fast, expecting everything to work. That's the new me.
She left Ghana, conquered Columbia University and the World Bank.
Then came back home, only to realize she didn't quite fit anymore.
This is Christabel Dadzie, here to tell the untold story of what happens when home feels foreign.
On the AGI Podcast.
That experience of going to the US for the first time, leaving Africa, how was it?
I'm a city girl, So green, grass, cows, windmills, cornfields. Like, what is this? Fast forward to my American education, I'd learned the term culture shock.
Studying under the likes of Joseph Stiglitz, Jeffrey Sachs. Give me the glimpse of that experience.
I would say Worcester defined who I am as an adult. Columbia, it was some of the best 2 years of my life, but professionally. Learning at the feet of such renowned people, you just cannot have it any better way.
Ahaspora.
Yes.
What is that?
So aha, in my language, tree means here. And then spora is the stem of the word diaspora.
Yeah.
My mother called me that when I returned. She's like, oh, you're no longer diaspora because you're a diaspora when you're there.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're Ahaspora. That's really what it is.
You left for the US and got the education. You started working in the US. Why come back to Africa then? Christabel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right. It's always a pleasure to have someone of your caliber on the show, just because I want to learn from individuals like yourself. But for the audience who's not familiar with your work, who is Christabel?
Good question.
Right.
One that I always struggle to respond to, but I will try. My name is Christabel Dadzie. I am from Ghana. I'm an African woman, proud and true.
All right.
And now I live in Ethiopia, and I'll tell that story later on. But essentially, that's who I see myself as.
Very humble. Very humble. My understanding was, in my mind, what was moving around is an Ivy League educated woman working for a major organization, the World Bank, a senior position in the World Bank, and someone influencing Ghana and different African countries in terms of policy and other things. And you tell me that you are the person that you described as. Okay. Tell me about your experience, first of all, as a child, then we'll be talking about your experience outside Africa and the US.
Mm-hmm. So honestly, the reason I tell you who I am the way I do is because I was born into a family. My father worked for WHO, World Health Organization, for 30 years. Started off as an ophthalmologist, so eye specialist, and then became a diplomat, grew through the ranks.
All right.
My mother is a renowned lawyer. And so when you say, who am I? That bar was set high a long time ago.
Wow.
So what I'm doing is what I was called to do, what I'm supposed to do, and does not define who I am. I'm never forgetting that I was born into privilege, and I'm privileged to have been there. And as a result, to whom much is given, much is expected. So that is really kind of how I've been defined. And the pressure is high. Like when your dad has been, the only thing that I think they lied to me about is when they say they were first in class. I think they're lying. But, everything they've seen, everything they've been, my dad has been to 130 countries.
Wow.
So when you have a father who's been to 130 countries, the only thing him and I argue about is when I go to a country he hasn't been to. So when I got to the Gambia, I was like, Daddy, I'm in the Gambia, you've never been, so I'm excited about that. But it just to tell you that there's a lot of pressure when you're born into privilege. And when I say privilege, I don't mean wealth, I mean education, right? And the expectations are high. and you follow it, and interestingly, a lot of the pressure is not even them giving it to you. It's self-imposed. You're just in a system, right? So yes, I grew up, so I was born in Ghana, and then we moved to Burkina Faso when I was 6 years old. And then we lived in Burkina Faso till I was 7, moving around to different places, but based there. And this was for my dad's work. At 7, I moved back to Ghana. So then I entered primary school in Ghana, did high school in a girls' school, and then I went to the U.S. For college. We stayed in the U.S. for about 13 years and then returned to Ghana. But we'll have that return discussion later on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I'm the last of 4. So I'm the last baby, and I like to own that as well, which is nice because I've also had the opportunity to learn a lot from my bigger siblings. My brother is 3 years older than me. We're very close. Even today, we spent the whole day chatting about this article that came out of the World Bank. I sent it to him, and then he started asking questions. Is this true? Are you sure? This. And he likes to lecture me a lot. But I learn a lot from him. He's a software engineer, but then now has entered the development space. He's been doing technology and development. So that was actually pretty cool because then now I can teach him something. It's nice to be able to be the little sister teaching the big brother as such. So I've had a lovely life. I've been blessed. We have the nuclear family as we do, but in Africa, it's an extended family. So I own all other people's kids in my family. I'm a big sister while I'm the last, and I really enjoy having family time. I was also really privileged. We started traveling early. So part of what I do now feeds from an upbringing where we traveled a lot. So I see myself, honestly, I bleed Ghana and Africa, but I'm a global citizen.
Wow, amazing. That experience of going to the US for the first time, living in Africa, how was it?
Excellent question. So, like I mentioned, as a kid, we'll travel summer holidays to Switzerland, to France, we've seen the world. So my experience was interesting because I thought it would be easier given that I'm well traveled.
All right.
However, it was the first time going to the US to stay and going to the US to stay on my own. And I think those 2 points are very important. And then I went to a small liberal arts college in the middle of nowhere in Ohio. And I remember so well coming from the airport, Cleveland Airport. It's a 45-minute drive to the school. And on the way, I was like, gosh, what did I just do? Where am I going? Green, grass, cows, what do you call those? Windmills, cornfields. What is this? I'm a city girl. So, fast forward to my American education, I learned the term culture shock. And I remember when they were telling us about it during orientation, I said, maybe I got reverse culture shock because I'm not culture shocked that I've entered the US coming from Africa and you think I'm from some village. No, I'm actually a city girl. And coming to village Worcester, I'm like, that is culture shock in itself. So that was really interesting. But fast forward to what happens to you when you leave your comfort zone to go abroad as an 18-year-old is that you grow up very quickly. I had my parents supportive, all of that, but we never went to the school before. When you're in the US and you're looking for schools, you can go visit. So I could have gone to the schools and tested if I liked them. I didn't do any of that. I couldn't fly out. So the first time I was entering Worcester physically was when I had been admitted, and there's no turning back. So you own it and you grow up, quite frankly. There's also things and I'm sure you relate to this, is my accent had to change. It is not even up for discussion. To be fair, Kofi Annan, who is, bless his heart, his soul, was UN Secretary General, one of the Ghanaians we really revere, one of my role models. He kept his accent somehow. I don't know how he did it because he's more traveled than I am, but I made sure I adapted quickly because otherwise they're like, I can't hear you. What are you saying? Honestly, I'm like, okay, why are you shouting? What is this? So then you adapt, you adapt to the culture, you adapt to the cold, you adapt, and that's what makes you grow up, right? So it was a very fascinating experience. absolutely ended up loving my college because it was so small. Everybody knew each other. But it built leadership in me because there was nowhere to go. I mean, the whole place is cornfields and such. We had one Walmart, one JC Penney, and then I think that was it. It was later. Now Worcester is way nicer, but back then there was nothing. So what do? You stay on campus, you join the student organizations. I became president of the African Students Association, vice president of International Students Association, joined student government. I mean, everything I did. But that was me being able to be built as a leader. And those 4 years really did it for me.
Amazing. I was expecting that you would mention going to Colombia after that, but I think you were expecting me to ask you about that experience because we argued a lot about that. And yesterday, I was talking to a friend who actually went to one of these Ivy Leagues, and he was indifferent about the whole experience. And your experience is a different one. Studying at the biggest intellectuals this world has ever seen, maybe the likes of Joseph Stiglitz, Jeffrey Sachs, and people like that. So tell me, give me the glimpse of that experience.
So the short version before I get into it is Worcester was home for me. I would say Worcester defined who I am as an adult, right? So I have a home attachment to Worcester. Also because it was so small and everybody knew me, I'd go hang out with my professors, their kids, all of that. Colombia, I would call more of, it was some of the best 2 years of my life, but professionally, if that makes sense. And it was because, like you said, I mean, for me, it was access. We had people from 90 countries on campus. In the elevator, every day you hear a different language, so that exposure in itself, like you mentioned, having some of the best renowned professors in economics and international affairs, the current New York mayor's dad, Mahmoud Mandani, was my professor, learning at the feet of such renowned people, you just cannot have it any better way. And then friendships I built in the hallways, right? We didn't have many Africans, so we bunched together a lot. Quite frankly, in Colombia was my introduction to Ethiopia. Majority of my friends were Ethiopians. I had my best friend from Cote d'Ivoire, and then there were a few West Africans. Majority of them would speak only French. My French is bad now, so it was a little difficult. And then, so I navigated towards the Ethiopians. So it was me, Christabel, and the Ethiopians. And so I started eating injera 20 years ago. I enjoyed the restaurants on Broadway. But that's the kind of exposure. And I would say one of the things that made it phenomenal is we worked hard and we played hard. We would study like hell because it was tough. It was not easy academically, high academic. But we would finish and then we would head to the streets of New York City. I mean, you can't have it any better than that.
Absolutely.
I've been to Brazilian festival. I've been to Cuban this, everything, call it. We went underground for jazz, like everything we've done. And then because we were students, we used to get these discounts. So I would go to Broadway at a cost that today I probably can't afford, right? And I would do that. So it was amazing. It really was. New York is still one of my favorite places on earth. After Accra.
All right. All right. After Accra. All right. Do you believe you earned it? Like you've been telling me about the experiences that you have had with your family, how your dad actually traveled the world and worked for different big organizations, and I feel the same about your mom as well, or your close family, the people around you. And you went to this big place to study. Do you believe you earned that, or it's just a privilege and you are enjoying it? 100%
earned it. I worked my butt off to get admitted into Colombia. I really did. So, I mean, when we were chatting, you asked, they seem a bit privileged. Yes.
Yeah.
I am privileged. I'm owning that, but it's because I earned it, but I'm a Christian, right? So I feel like I'm blessed. I don't forget. I don't take it for granted that I just got into Colombia, quite frankly. There had to be something in addition to my hard work that paved the way, the grace that got me there. So that part I never leave behind, right? But at the same time, shoot, I have to own that space. I deserve to be there. I made the most out of the experience. And I think, and I will speak about this when we start talking about the World Bank a bit, but for me and the experience I went through in Colombia and the fact that there were so few Africans, I am that African girl that allows a younger one to say, I can go to Colombia. That's how I saw it. So it wasn't about Christabel. It was about the 9-year-old Christabel who will see me and say, let me study hard. I can go to Colombia.
Amazing. I want us to explore actually about coming back to Africa and the organization that you actually established. But first of all, why come back to Africa? Like, you left Africa. I know about the privilege. I know about the opportunities that you've had in Africa, but you left for the US and got the education. Started working for the World Bank in the US, DC. Yes? Why come back to Africa then?
So I'm laughing because that's my favorite topic on earth, honestly. So maybe a backdrop is for the family I was brought up in, coming back home was always the thing you do. It wasn't necessarily that they said it, but it was just something that you go out, you gain experience, come and give back. It was ingrained in us. So I think that backdrop is important so that it becomes almost like a little bit of a pressure to go back. That being said, by the time I decided to come back home, I did it because it was actually on January 1, 2010, that I made my New Year's resolution that I'm heading home. And I did it because I realized if I didn't leave at that point, I would never have left. I would stay in the US for life. Now, at this point, I don't have US citizenship for choice, not because I couldn't get it, but because I never pursued it. At this point, I'm like, in and out of relationships. I'm like, this thing, I'm going to be here. I'm in an excellent job doing high-level management, and I live in my apartment. I love it. I can afford to live on my own. As you know, electricity works when you pay for it. Utilities work. All of the privileges around. The roads are smooth. I used to drive from DC to New York because when I left New York, I didn't leave because I wanted to. I left because of work. And so if you've been in both, you know that New York is much faster and much more exciting. So DC had to grow on me. Weekend, Friday morning, I put a little backpack in my car, my little Toyota Corolla, drive to the office, close at 6 o'clock, drive straight, 195. I know that like the back of my hand. 4 hours to New York. Why? Because the roads are so easy to drive. Play my music. Just make sure you stay on the speed limits, because otherwise the cops will get you. But aside that one, I just go, I stop along the way, get some fuel, get some, crackers and cookies, and then keep going. Party all weekend. Sunday, return journey. That was my life. I was loving it. So I just kept having the feeling like, I have this thing where I check my life every 3 years. And the 3-year had come and I just said, I'm going to be here for the rest of my life. So you know what? I need to do what is my calling, which is to go back home. And that's actually what set me to go. Now, did I go because somebody told me to? No, absolutely not. And quite frankly, this is what I tell folks. If you do it because you were asked to, you may leave when the going gets tough. But if you do it because it's what you believe you should do, there's a purpose behind your move, then even at the toughest times, you know why you're home. For me, it was, I'm going to give back. I've learned a lot here. I've been, like I said, in privileged positions. I just want to go and give my quota to my country. The one thing I did differently than most people is I'm not a risk taker. So I said, I'm going, but I'm going to have to find a job. I'm not one of those who just get up and get on the plane and then they figure it out. In June 1, 2010, I had a job and a one-way ticket. Went home.
That must have been quite an experience.
It was. It was. And this experience for me started on the plane. This will sound like a fairy tale, but it's real. So I'm on the plane. Now I figure out in the end, after the end of the story, that I was asleep. But I thought I was awake, right? And I had this feeling that everybody on the plane was like me with a one-way ticket. And I started thinking how powerful, because Delta Airlines, they had 200 passengers or something, like a big number, right? Imagine if all of us were on our way home with the one-way tickets to get back to the continent. So that dream started on the plane. Woke up and realized I was the only one, that I know who was doing that. But it immediately planted a seed in me to say, how can we get more people like myself who are professionals, who've gained insights, who, like I told you at the beginning, has grown up, not because I wanted to, because I'm a foreigner in somebody's land, has adapted to things that are foreign to me. What I didn't mention that I should is going to America at the age I went to was the first time ever I had been called Black. First time. So having to deal with that new identity and all of those recognizing slavery, slave trade, what it means, all of that, you grow up, right? You learn something. Then, like I said, I went to some of the best schools, so I got excellent education and then work experience. So if I come back home, just the human being alone is giving back a great deal to my country. If I stay and I give all of that to people, what we call brain drain, that's not useful, right? So fast forward to landing home in Ghana. And like anything in life, the first is, as soon as you get, I don't know if you've been to Ghana before. If you haven't, I need to take you. But
yeah, absolutely.
As soon as you get to Ghana, weather is not like this. Humid.
Wow.
So you get off the plane and it just blows. Like there's this air that blows in your face that you're just like, ooh, I'm home. So I started from there and I'm like all excited. I'm home, honeymoon phase. Family's excited to have me. Friends are like, oh my God, she's back. So the beginning is fun. And then over time, things change. And what I did was I started writing. At the time, it was Facebook notes about what I called the good, the bad, and the ugly of my return. And it was fascinating because what I realized was when I wrote things, and I'll tell you a few of the things I wrote, those who'd left would literally call me, giving me a round of applause that, gosh, Christabel, I can relate. I'd never thought about this. Then those who stayed home were pissed off at me. You leave, you think you're better than us, you come and you're going to ruin the name of Ghana, So already I'm a researcher and I'm seeing these two personalities. I'm like, what do I do with these? And I'm somewhere in the middle. And I'll tell you some of the things I wrote about. I think one that stands out for me is when I got home and I was working, I was leading a company, helping them set up the Africa business. And I felt like I all of a sudden had become lazy. The US, I'm working 14-hour days, like no issue. Then I leave the office and then I go and run or go to the gym or something. At home, I'm just like tired after 6 hours. So I'm like, what is wrong with me? So I started thinking about it, looking around me, and I realized it was heat and traffic. So remember the humidity I told you about at the airport? Accra is hot. It drains you, right? And then there's traffic. You think there's traffic in Addis? Come visit my country. It's not that many roads and connections. So there's a lot of traffic and too many cars, I would say. The transport system isn't great. So by the time you finish dealing with traffic and the heat, you're a human being. You're going to be tired.
Yeah.
So me realizing this, I started hydrating. I mean, the point is you need to be open-minded to your new space. And when you figure out the little kinks, you address it differently. But anyways, I was telling these stories on Facebook. And then I'm seeing a divide in our young professionals, those who left and those who are home. And then I started realizing that we need to bridge home and abroad because we both have a space in our country's development. I'm not going to fix Ghana, and neither is the person that I left, 13 years before I left home. It's both of us. So how do we bridge that gap? So that was one of the things that I started kind of trying to figure out. Then the second one was what I call brain gain. A lot of people think about diaspora.
Brain gain.
Gain. G-A-I-N. Not drain.
All right.
Now gain. And the reason being, a lot of people think about diaspora and the first word that comes to them, remittances.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
For me, it's human capital. It's Christabel getting on the plane and going home and hiring 10 people, right? Opening her own business, coming to mentor young ones. That is diaspora, right? And it's the idea that I didn't leave and maintain all my capabilities to somebody else. I came back home, right? So for me, that's where my brain was as I got home. So fast forward to a year later, I've been thinking through this. Oh, there was one point in the discussion. This was also around when the US economic crisis, the first one, Wall Street crashed.
Wow. Okay.
I went home around that time. So now
Was that 2008?
Yes, it started
Alright.
in 2008 and it ran through about 2011.
Yeah.
So I get home 2010 and there's a whole bunch of Ghanaians, young ones my age, who had come home, not because they wanted to, but because they were laid off from Goldman Sachs, Lehman Brothers, all of these things. But interestingly, I'm chatting with them, and for the first time, I'm realizing young people are leading the telcos, the banks, the big private sector commercial ways in a way that my brother who had left before, one of his biggest struggles in establishing his business was not expertise, it was being young. Because I don't know how it is in Ethiopia, but in my culture, the older you are, the wiser you are. Right? So people already judge you by your youthful exuberance, which, to be fair, a lot of youth flights, are flight risks. So I can understand. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that if I put a proposal to gain a job, I can carry through. But now, fast forward to my age group, these guys are CFOs and, big jobs. So I'm like, oh, wow, this is a different thing. And what the difference is with this new group, and I'll say maybe it was initiated before us and we got lucky, I don't know, but is that we're global and local. Somebody coined the term glocal, which is what we are.
Okay.
So I'm like, oh, I'm going to own this. The idea that the multilaterals want somebody who understands their language from the global side. Yeah. So having walked around the streets of New York, I can speak like you. I can relate to how fast you want things. But I can speak my local language in Ghana. You can't. So I can connect you to the two. So you see another bridge of who we are. So I started thinking through all of this. And then fast forward to April 16, 2011. At my mom's house, so I give her credit. I had lunch with 12 other friends, and started discussing with them some of the frustrations I'd seen. And I was coming from a big development perspective, but I was around the table. Majority of these guys were the private sector people I'm talking about. They're looking at me like, what, you want to go and help parliaments do what? Woman, let's think fintech. Let's think, like all of these big financials, like let's build real estate for our diaspora. Like, okay, great, sure. So I said, anyways, I have this idea because I've noticed that a lot of us will get frustrated and leave. So why don't we form a support system? And so I discussed it and they're all like, no, you're absolutely right. Networks are what is going to help us. For some people, it may be church. Other people, it may be, Rotary Club or whatever. We can form our network of our like-minded individuals. And then I told them, I was like, can we name it Ahaspora?
That was one of the things I wanted to know deeply about. Yeah, go Ahaspora.
Yes.
What is that?
So it starts by, so aha, in my language, tree means here. And then spora is the stem of the word diaspora.
The suffix. Oh, okay.
You get it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, definitely.
My mother called me that when I returned. She's like, oh, you're no longer diaspora because you're a diaspora when you're there. Now you're Ahaspora. That's really what it is. And it was a joke. And then I said to her, like, oh, gosh, this is kind of cool. Let's call it that. So we, agreed and then formed the organization then. And what we decided to do was one thing, which was leverage technology. And one of our biggest challenges moving back home and in our new position as a foreigner in your own country. Here is Christabel, who was a foreigner abroad and figured it out.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be a foreigner in my own country. But I came home and I found that I was lost. All my friends in high school went on to university, made their own networks in university, in church and this and that and that. And while they were excited to see me when I was back, my phone wasn't ringing. My phone rang with the folks that I had returned with, right? So whether I liked it or not, now I was a foreigner in my own home. One, I needed to own that new personality. Speaking too fast, walking too fast, expecting everything to work. That's the new me.
New York effect.
Hey, what am I going to say? So that was one, is owning it, but two, doing something about it and being relevant. So one of our biggest issues was access to information. And I'll tell you why. When you live in the US or live abroad, you want to start a business. What's the first thing you do?
Talk to people, ask around, maybe?
Because you're African, that's why you do that.
Yeah.
Do you know what they'll do? Google.
Yeah.
Likely. And likely is when they put it in, they will find the address, phone number, email address of the place and everything. But your answer was my answer because that's what we do as Africans.
Yeah.
We're oral society.
Definitely.
Everything is asking. When you ask me where to give you directions to my house, I'm telling you, when you get to the coconut cellar, turn left. If the coconut seller is sick, we're in trouble, right? But that is who we are.
Yeah.
So the issue was access to information. So we said, you know what? Let's put people together in one space and ask each other questions. That's how it started. So in April, a few days later, it was 12 people. The 12 people I invited over. And we started asking each other questions. Then referrals, people started joining. Within 2 years, we had over 1,000 people who would just literally ask and answer. And guess what? In that process, we were bridging home and abroad. Because when I ask a question, if I ask it to you and you just came with me, you don't know the answer. Who knows the answer? It's my brother or sister or auntie or uncle or friend who has been in home for 10 years or all their life. They know where the coconut cellar is, where the best pork joint is, where, all of that. When I'm starting a business, who I should talk to. Or they actually are the ones I go see in the bank to sign off my papers for me. Because that's how our culture works. Now, I'll tell you, I went from a place of seeing that as backward to realizing that, no, I just need to be open-minded. Because I was able to learn somebody's culture, adapt to it when I went to the US. Why do I expect Ghana to be like the US? Why? Why don't I own Ghana's oral culture, but leverage it to my benefit? And that's what we did. So fast forward to now, we have more than 3,000, almost 4,000 people in a database who share on ideas. Some want to come home, then they see that I'm home, and they're like, oh, maybe it's not that bad, because they're seeing themselves. This woman lived in Ohio, New York, and she's in Africa for 10 years. I can do it too. Now, the one thing I'll say that has changed in my thinking about going home is, I told you I went with a one-way ticket.
Yeah.
I've been back home 3 times. Now, today, I live in Ethiopia. So the whole idea should not just be a one-way ticket. Now, the one-way ticket, I think, gives too much pressure. So a lot of people's thinking on the one-way tickets actually derails them, right? Oh, I'll go when I'm ready. Next thing you know, 25 years, 50 years, you never left. But think about it. It starts from you, wherever you are abroad, having a home mindset. So you may not carry your body to Ghana, but if you gave Christabel support to support a school in Ghana, are you not giving back to your country? You are.
Yeah, amazing. But mentioning different anecdotes of your experience and telling us your journey. I was thinking about the experiences of so many people who came back to Ethiopia, some positive, some negative. Some had difficulty accessing opportunities or meeting people or something like that. And some chose to return back to wherever they're from in other countries like Europe, it could be, or the US. Would you say the experience for all Africans could be the same? Because, for example, I would assume as a layman, because you have this knowledge, you studied under these big professors, now you have this understanding of the world. So I need you to come to transform and to impact the society in terms of knowledge and other things. Maybe thinking of development, thinking of changing the economy of the country. Would you say that's the same experience for all Africans, especially educated Africans who studied in other countries and who are coming back to their country of origin, be it Ghana or Ethiopia or Nigeria, any country in Africa?
Yes and no. I think yes, in the sense that most likely a lot of us who are educated abroad have a similar mindset based on the education we received. Now, I say that generalizing because UK and US already are very different, right? But just in general. So a lot of us, I think from the US, I'll tell you one thing. I learned voluntarism in the US.
All right.
I didn't even know it existed.
No, right.
Funny enough, I had been practicing it at home, but I just didn't know it was a thing. So, the US is excellent at packaging things, right? And I took that back home also. So you learn these things and you have this spirit of giving back almost, and then you go and give back. But that's because I'm a development girl. I'm sorry. The finance people look at me funny, like, what are you talking about? I'm going to make money.
Yeah.
I'm going to go explore. And the reality is Africa is it. There is so much opportunity to do something new. Think about it. In the US, majority of the new things are already done. So you're one of 50,000 people doing the same thing. You come to Togo, you likely be able to start a company nobody's ever done, or Gambia, or wherever, right, on the continent. So there's also an excitement to build. In a way, on the continent, you see a lot of entrepreneurs springing up who have left abroad and come home. The no part is because we all have very different experiences. My big sister stayed for 3 years and left. She lives in Edinburgh. She'll probably live in Edinburgh for the rest of her life. And quite frankly, she should. There's a space for all of us. I have friends who went to my college. If I take my classmates, it was the first time 6 Ghanaians went to Worcester, Ohio. And it was always one here and there, but they had recruited hard, and there were 6 of us. And of the 6 of us, I'm the only one who went to Ghana. They come visit every now and then, but I'm the only one. And that's okay.
All right.
Right? So I feel that is fine, but that's the base of it. I think the more philosophical question is, why do people leave? And that's where there are gaps we need to fill. Because a lot of people are frustrated in ways that it's not necessary. There's no reason why some of our countries are not more developed than they should be.
Yeah.
There's no reason why if I pay for electricity, I shouldn't have it working all the time. So there's some basics that I think that we shouldn't lie to ourselves. We need to improve. And that may help have more of us come back and give back, and build the continent we want to see.
All right. Let me take you back to the US. I just want to take you back to Colombia and that experience there. So people have this feeling, a friend I told you about yesterday, he was challenging me in a way, like, you go to this school and the knowledge that you get is not the exact kind of knowledge that people talk about when you come back. Do you think that is hyped? Is there anything hyped? I was trying to defend my argument saying that this college, these Ivy League universities have endowments so they can bring people, professors from different part of the world. Their knowledge can be accessed easily. That was my argument against his idea, his notion of calling the whole experience an okay experience.
Look, mine was a phenomenal experience. So I will not say okay by any stretch of the word, but I can understand where he's coming from. What I think the Ivy Leagues have done well, like anything in the world, is created a branding that you just will benefit from, right? So you finish Columbia, you may not find the best job day one, but you will find the best job in the next 10 years.
So let's just emphasize on the branding part of it. Is that just a narrative that you've been talking about packaging, the US being a very good packaging country, or a good branding country, or good in terms of getting the brands out? Is that about the brand or the packaging of it?
I think it's a lot more than the brand, but the brand is a big piece.
All right.
Everybody knows Ivy League.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Right? As soon as it changes. I mean, look, I'll be honest. people have seen or heard I've gone to Colombia and it changes how they talk to me.
Absolutely.
You know? So that doesn't, in my opinion, what do you do with that? You own it. And you make the most out of it.
Absolutely.
That's my take on life in general. Like if I've done it, hey, why not?
Why not?
Now there's also people who didn't go to Ivy, like my liberal arts education, excellent.
Excellent.
Right?
Wow.
So it's not, I wouldn't necessarily say that if you didn't go to Ivy League, you didn't make it. No. It's just that it adds to something, you know? We all want to build resumes and good careers and aim high to the skies. So if that African girl from, I was going to say middle of nowhere, Ghana, but it's not true. I live in the capital city, in the center, before I went to Colombia. But you get my point. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
If you, why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about development. Let's talk about the World Bank experience and coming back to Africa. Now you're contributing, giving back you're giving back, but you're getting paid a lot.
Of course.
Are you? Yeah. So let's talk about the development part of it, because we've been talking about this, and we read books written by Africans and books written by different people from other part of the world, arguing against and for development for Africa coming from aid, donation, and Africa itself working hard and transforming from within. Yeah. So you're working for the World Bank and trying to bring resources from outside Africa and support Africans in different areas. Do you really believe what you are bringing from outside the world can contribute to Africa, can change us, or there is something that has to be done?
So I will come clean and say I was one of the many, many, many graduate school students who wrote essays against institutions like the bank. You start from there. And quite frankly, a lot of what we've learned is true. The bank has reformed quite a bit over the many decades, you know, and for good reason.
Yeah.
So that's one. So I'm there because I believe in the institution. Our vision is to end poverty and build shared prosperity on a livable planet. I mean, how much more powerful is that? And I do it every day. I contribute towards that vision every day. So call me biased. I love what I do. I see the change that I've been able to contribute to every day. I know women whose lives have been transformed because of the grants or credits we were able to give to country, but more importantly, because of the extreme technical assistance and knowledge that we've been able to share because we work across the world, basically. So we're able to tell you, oh, this worked in Egypt. Can we test it and see if it applies to Ethiopia? And then, you know, tweak it to fit the local environment. So what we do is quite powerful. I like what is one of the big unique things of the bank. There are other institutions like us, but not that many, is we are able to, quote unquote, put our money where our mouth is. There's a lot of institutions like us who will not be able to, they'll have a good conversation around changes. They'll give you technical advisory services, but they can't put the money to actually see it happen. We are able to do that last mile, which is something that I think is really important and powerful. Now, that being said, as an African in the World Bank, I see it as bigger than me. Listen, there needs to be way more Africans in institutions like the World Bank. I don't think there's enough of us. And I'll be honest that there's many times that we'll be on like maybe a conference call and then I find myself looking in the room like, 2 Black people. No, it shouldn't be that way because quite frankly, a lot of decisions are being made for us if we are not at the table. You can never change a decision if you're not in the room. And being in the room and being able to contribute to decision-making policies and implementation of development for my continent is the best thing I could ever do on this earth. It's what God has placed me to do. So it's bigger than me. I represent more than one individual in the institution. I represent an entire continent. Whether I work in Ethiopia or I work in Afghanistan, I still do. And there's role models within the bank, like our former vice president. Her name is Victoria Kwakwa, who's a Ghanaian. And she worked, name it, in Asia, in Vietnam, in all these amazing countries. And she was it. Everybody talks about her. When she was retiring, the kind of accolation this woman got. So I'm her. I want to be her. And then the one behind me wants to be me, right? And then we enter, and then we are the change because we're at the table. So I think that is my approach, quite frankly, every day when I walk into my office in whichever country that I'm walking into. Now, the second thing is, I don't think the World Bank has ever been expected or should be expected to change any country or continent. I don't believe that. We should support governments transform their countries. Governments are placed in that role to lead. Ours is a support role. And I don't know if everybody on the bank, let me be honest, feels this way, but that is my approach to my work, and I preach it. We're here to support. In Ethiopia, we work with 14 development partners on the program I lead. And I tell them all the time, I'm like, I'm here to support the government of Ethiopia and the poorest people in Ethiopia to come out of poverty. My role is a support one. So when I'm making a decision, I check, does this fit Ethiopia? If it does, we go ahead. If it doesn't, let's have a conversation around how we fix that. I don't come with ready-made solutions. No, that's not how it should be. And interestingly, I think that there's also something to working on your own continent.
Yeah.
Gosh, sometimes I get really tired because I take it so seriously and so personally.
Yeah.
Right? But it's important that we know that role. Yes, we advise. Yes, we give money. Yeah. But we're here to support that transformation. And if you think about it that way, then absolutely, the world's money should come and join Africa's money. But what about Africa's money? The one that exists here, what are we doing with it? That's the question I want to ask. And I'll tell you, I've had fascinating conversations since I got to Ethiopians. I love Ethiopians. You guys just are like, I don't even know how to put it. Like, you're very determined. Like, you take an issue and you're like, this is it, right? And you go with it. And I've had these conversations around development when I pushed back and I said, guys, so you're telling me that it's not your own person who made this decision, somebody made them make it? What are you talking about? Africans are smart.
Yeah.
We're some of the most educated people on earth. Our decisions are our own. Why are the river bodies in Ghana literally brown? Because our elite have decided to turn a blind eye on illegal gold mining and what it's doing to our river bodies. If we put our mind to it, we can change that. Majority of the world's resources, where are they? Natural resources.
Absolutely. We talk about it a lot. We say a lot. I mean, the major reason I raised that question is because at the very inception of the World Bank and IMF, I think after the Second World War, it was about actually helping Europe reconstructing and achieve whatever. At the backdrop, I know that the European society was an educated society and they had all the privilege, all the opportunities before. We don't have that opportunity. Most of our African countries were not actually exposed to education and a lot of things the way the Europeans were. But now Europe is its own continent. They are self-sufficient. They're supporting each other and living the way they do, not being influenced like African countries. So I'm not actually saying that we have to do it the way Europe did it.
Yeah, I was just going to return and say that.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
But you kind of wish, because when you go to other places, for example, the US or UK, you don't want to be labeled as someone who's still being supported by the money that is from the US or the European countries. And that, I mean, you strive to be where you are, but the label is given to you. That's why I'm mentioning these things. Yeah. So that's the main reason I mentioned that point. And is there a timeline for us to be that independent continent? Like, do you have some understanding of timeline? Because I know there is corruption. I know that there is bureaucracy everywhere, red tape for everything. and not being competent is a problem. Meritocracy is not appreciated. Nepotism is everywhere. Those kind of problems are there. We've been singing the problems for many years, like maybe hundreds of years, but still we're living with the problem. So do you have a timeline, or do you think Africa will have that timeline for its own and overcome this problem?
So let me take the pieces of what you're saying.
Yeah.
The first one to me is the labeling, right? Look, they can call us whatever you want. You know who you are. We know that we're one of the best continents of Earth with all the natural resources, with all the beauty. Let's own that first. So for me, that's one. And that's also why I do what I do, telling African stories. We are amazing people doing phenomenal things, whether on the continent or elsewhere. So we need to tell that story more, because I did live in Ohio, where they did believe that I lived on a tree. In 2000. This is not in 1922.
Yeah.
I met a little girl, true life story, who touched my skin and did this and said, "Have you always been this color?" Meaning she probably never seen a black person.
Wow.
So I'm not being naive about the situation,
Absolutely.
but I'm saying that we Africans need to first show up and show strong, believe in who we are. One of the things I've told you I love about the US is their branding. You go to a baseball match in Milwaukee and they call it World Cup. I'm just saying, right? So we also have some work to do, which is why I love what you're doing and what I do. Tell our stories. So that's one. Two, you are right in saying the bank was set up. It's actually called International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. So your history is correct. But when you say that Africa was not educated, that's inaccurate.
In the Western terms, in that sense, I mean.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the history, African history, you look at the empires we had and all of that. You look at even women's empowerment. My gosh. Women leading wars. In my tribe, women led wars, defeated men in other places. Before women's rights was probably even a name, you know? So we have a lot, and I think we should own that more than we do. And that fits back into my optimism, which is there a timeline? I wish there was a timeline. And if I could give you the answer to that question, I need a Nobel Peace Prize today. The truth is, I think we should start from ourselves. Part of why Africa is where it is because Africa does not think of itself together. Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, blessed memory, our first president, Haile Selassie, Julius Nyerere, when they formed the OAU, Organization of African Unity, which is now African Union, that was the idea. Africa should be one. Now, they thought it as one country. I'm not sure that's necessarily should be the case, but I think it's more of the ideology of we are one. Think of the many Africans, and look, I'm included. If I'm sitting here right now, I'm thinking of the things I'm buying on Amazon from the US, or the fact that I'm going there next month and then I'll buy things in the stores and come back. How often do I think of buying things from Nigeria? Why are we not trading together? Why are we not seeing ourselves first? Why are we not bunching together for skill? If you pick Ghana, Benin, Togo, I'm thinking of the countries around Ghana. Burkina Faso. Imagine if the 4 of us or the 5 of us, add Liberia, Sierra Leone, we're working together. Yes, we have ECOWAS. Yes, we have AU. We have SADC. We have EAC. Some better than some, but really, I think if we change our mindset towards how powerful Africa is, and if we put our money where our mouth is on this continent, if we're trading with each other, if we have visa-free across the continent, let's start having that conversation. If I'm trying to travel from Ghana to somewhere French Africa, sometimes I need to go to Paris and come back. Why? So Ethiopian Airlines, I have so much respect for what your country's done. Because we need to connect the country first. Somebody showed me a diagram, I don't know if it's AI or is real, of planes and movements in the West versus planes and movements on Africa. and the Africa one was almost empty. That alone is trade we're losing. Why are we not connected better? Why don't we get some rails? I know there's a bunch of corridors being discussed now.
Yeah.
That's long overdue. Because if we connect each other, that's trade. So there are some concrete things we need to do. But I also say, I think a bit of that means that you need to lose a sense of self. Let's be real. Yes, colonial masters divided up the continents in ways that everything goes out, not in. It did happen. So we complain about it and continue it, or we fix it. I choose the latter. And you know the solution?
Yeah.
Me, you.
I'm honored.
Honestly.
All right. I'm honored, but still, I see more of the challenge. I know I'm an optimist, but still, we have a very long way to go and achieve those
Agreed.
things. I want you to tell us a little bit more about Ahaspora.
Sure.
Where do you want to take it? What are you planning? Like, is it going to be a Ghana thing? Like, will it remain in Ghana only? Or are you thinking of something else? Because we talked about Africa, and you mentioned the likes of Kwame Nkrumah, Haile Selassie, Julius Nyerere, and the forefathers, the big ones. And their dream for Africa was to come together.
Yes.
So now for this generation, the likes of yourself, myself, and others are here. And you're coming from, you came from the other part of the world, the US, and now you are based in Africa, in Ethiopia, Ghana, and other places. So what's next?
So maybe let me say a little bit about what we've done.
Yeah.
And I'll start from, for me, it was always a movement for us to come back home. And come back from a place of privilege so that we can give back proportionally, right? So it was Ghana because that's where I was headed, quite frankly. Since I formed the network, I've traveled to different African countries and literally spread the word on what I've done in the hopes that people will create similar networks. Because to me picking Ahaspora and taking around the continent is not appropriate. Kenya should create their own. Ethiopia should create their own. That fits there. But imagine all of our countries having diaspora networks like this one. And then the next imagination, because I dream a lot, right, is all of us speaking together. Why I was so excited when I met you. Because we should be looking at how we bunch together. The same thing I said about our leaders in trade, we need to do it too, right? So for me, it's looking further than that. We turn 15 next week. 15 years of building this network, of being at the center of diaspora engagement in Ghana. It's been a privilege to be, for the longest time, the only diaspora organization in the country. Because what happened back in the day was most diaspora organizations were outside in the diaspora, which makes sense. But we were the one in the country. So it made us the go-to when it came to issues around diaspora, which made it excellent, and ended up having to, be part of key government policies. The diaspora engagement policy, we were there from day one, supported creating that and so many more. We've organized thought leadership conferences on the Ghana we want, on trade, investments, building partnerships. For us, it's about community, building partnerships from community. A lot of what we've done has been anecdotal. I have stories of people who tell me, I literally was thinking of getting on the plane, and somebody told me about Ahaspora. I showed up to social networking, happy hour, met people like you. I've been here 10 years later. And that is what keeps me actually going, because it tells me the need is there. Now, 15 years ago, I'll be honest, the word diaspora was not as common as it is now. There's many more diaspora organizations sprang up, some great, some, but they're there. There's more appreciation about diaspora engagement, why it's important, and the things we need to do even beyond remittances, right? And opportunities for investments, or like you guys building a trust fund, which I really want to look into and see how we can mirror elsewhere. So in a sense, it kind of changes a little bit what I think I need to do versus what else we should be doing. I want to do more of the storytelling. honestly. I love bringing people together. I love celebrating people. And I want to use us as an avenue to celebrate Africans, to tell stories of Africans in the diaspora or Africans who've returned home and encourage other people to be part of that movement. We're doing amazing things. I met this Ghanaian chef. Next time you're in Washington, D.C., go to Elmina. There's a restaurant called Elmina. It's on U Street.
Elmina?
Yeah.
All right.
It's on U Street. And he's a Ghanaian guy, Chef Eric, who's on Top Chef. He went, I think, all the way. I think he ended up third at the finale or something, but opened a restaurant. And what he does is he's made Ghanaian Western fusion, kind of like what Marcus does, where he's picked Ethiopian food. And actually, there's a show that I saw yesterday on Instagram. Him, Marcus, and a lady are doing this African fusion show. I'm going to follow it.
Okay.
But food, we've put Ghana on the map with our food, and just many things like that. We had a UN Secretary General who was Ghanaian. And I'm sure if I turn over and I interview right now, you name all these Ethiopians who are doing fabulous things abroad and at home.
Yeah.
So why are we diminishing our story? So I really want to do that. I really want to network more across the continent for us to have these conversations, for us to start partnering on this diaspora engagement. Because again, maybe we are the ones who are going to connect the continent. Just maybe.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned something about human capital and Africa benefiting out of that. Tell me a bit about that, because we talk about resources for Africa and we focus on that area alone a lot because we mention countries with oil, countries with diamond, countries with gold, and a lot of things. But how important does human capital develop working on that area?
Think about building the West. Was it just built by money? Just built on people's labor.
Yeah.
Think about it. So if you pick that, those are human beings. Then pick that labor and educate it. Starting banks, innovative companies, all of that. It's humans. I can name a whole bunch of phenomenal Africans who've created these amazing companies on the continent and elsewhere. And it's what they did. Built off of an education, talent, name it, and you have it, right? So for me, it's the person and what we're bringing back. It's the positive migration. A lot of people think of migration, African migration, you think through people, going by boats to get to Europe, that's a lot of the thought. But there's this big group of us who are bringing positive migration to Africa because we learned elsewhere, we gained experience. And to be honest, a lot of it is not just school education. Sometimes it's street smart. I've met some pretty cool Ethiopians in the Bronx and in, Harlem doing phenomenal things. They didn't all go to Colombia. Let's just say it, right? So I feel like there is something to us owning the need to come back and give, whether it's for a short period or a long period. But if we're all, just imagine if you were all doing a little bit of this. Somebody even just came and entered government for 4 years and contributed their quota and left. Somebody comes and, works in Ethio Telecom for 3 years, contributes and left. Just let's say it was done in an organized or a systematic fashion. Wouldn't that really do something? I mean, we are taking nurses to Jamaica and to Cuba to support. So we're onto something. So why don't we also see what it means to do it here? And then I'm back to my whole thing of connecting Africa. How many Africans go work in other African countries? Ethiopia is a little different because we have UNHCR, we have AU. But I'll tell you, the Ghanaian community I met here, I was surprised at some of the private sector cool things people are doing. There's this Ghanaian man working here in a beer company or something. I was like, okay. But pretty interesting. Outside, you would think it's just the development space.
Yeah.
There's more to that. So I think focusing on the people and the fact that the people will build the continent changes everything.
All right. What is the one thing that you think you'd be remiss if you don't mention here?
Wow. So when I think about Ahaspora and I tell my story, I said to you that I went first with a one-way ticket and I've left, officially 3 times. But I'll be honest, like I travel a lot and I love traveling. So even when I was based in Ghana, I was always leaving. So I tell the story a little bit differently, which you would have heard me say here, which is just have a mindset of contributing to the continent. Start from where you are. So don't wait till you're moving. Be inspired by a move. Make a decision to do it. Sometimes too, we overthink it, right? Just do it. Come and test it and see. The best part for people like you and me and others is I can always go back to the US. As I'm sitting here, I have a visa, I can go back. So there isn't that burden of this is the only way to do it. Sometimes just come try it out for a few years. Give that quota and go back, right? So to me, that is something that over the years, as I've worked in diaspora engagement and connected with people, I'm saying, let's all contribute, not just by making a full decision or moving fully. And typically we do that when everything is set. And as life would have it, not everything is set all the time. But sometimes we should just think about that change in mindset. That one, Africa, if we want to have the Africa we want, we need to build it. We need to lead it. Nobody's going to come do it for us. So we need that mindset shift to come back, give back, hire those young people. That supports youth unemployment, does it not? Do those innovative, cool things, put us on the globe, right? As you go back and forth, that's okay too. So I really first want to say a big thank you to you. Also because it's Ahaspora's 15th anniversary, so it's a lovely time for me to be able to share my story.
Amazing.
But also to say I'm looking forward to some partnerships where we truly make this network bigger than individual countries and maybe start looking at it as a continent-wide approach and see where that takes us.
Amazing. Christabel, I learned from your wisdom and how humble you are. I really appreciate your time and your dedication. And you sacrificed a lot, I know, to come here. So thank you so much for everything.
No, thank you for having me. It's a privilege. Thank you so much.
All right.